in my previous post, I mentioned I had bought like a 20-foot conveyor dryer off eBay. The company, when I called them, they said that that machine, like a new model of that machine, that large, would cost, one guy told me $50,000, another guy told me $80,000. I wasn't able to finish the tour of the progress on the new house the other day. It got too late and it was getting dark out and stuff. It's cool because yesterday the countertop got installed actually. So here is the countertop. Oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful, no? Ooh, ah. This one, we were trying to return this cabinet, but they wouldn't accept the return because we didn't have the box for it still, which kind of sucks. I feel like it would be better to just have the fridge over here facing like this way. I guess we're kind of stuck with the cabinet now anyway. We're gonna flip-flop it so that the door actually opens all the way because this wall's right here. But I'm super excited like about the house. I was just watching some of my vlogs and thinking about everything going on, and I know sometimes I'm like, oh man, there's still so much to do, and there is, and there pretty much always will be until I'm too old to do anything. I'm super happy with the progress, and it's coming along really well. We still have to get the siding on the back of the house replaced from taking those steps down. I wish those steps were still there, but unfortunately they were just not built well and we had to remove them. And it was also kind of like a safety concern, not only from them not being structurally sound, but also just like anybody can walk up into my bedroom at any time basically with having those steps there. So just this added like level of security. I also bought some security cameras. I bought like an alarm system. I bought like a motion sensor light for the garage. Getting a shotgun, you know, my Glock, AK-47 with like hollow tips and an extended mag and like a red dot scope or whatever. No big deal. Just kidding, I don't have that stuff. It's kind of weird to even talk about. I'm not trying to flex, I'm just trying to say don't with me, dog. I just work really hard and I have like nice stuff, and I don't want some criminal or hooligan to like take advantage of me is basically what I'm saying, or try to take advantage of me. So it's good to be able to protect yourself, protect your loved ones, feel secure if there is a potential threat. That's how I feel about guns. I don't really want to get into like that because that's like a Pandora's box that I don't want to open. I think to an extent, like, you know, guns are good and bad. We'll just put it that way. I don't see it as like one-sided at all. I've already showed you the house. I'm gonna show you the garage next, and just kind of walk through like how I'm planning on laying it out. I was up late last night. I couldn't sleep for the life of me. I actually, thank God I have my microphone on. I started like going through some of my vlogs because I get so excited about this channel, and I hope you're excited about it too. I hope that you subscribe. I hope that you like. I hope that you comment and let me know what you think. I really want to bounce ideas back and forth with people. Just kind of get involved with a community, a bigger, broader collective of minds. I think I've run out of things to say. I'm gonna go show you the garage. Here we go. So there's the roof that we had added on. I hope to God that that holds up. My uncle has instilled doubt in me as far as like when it gets hot out again in the summer, like it might bubble up because it's black and it's tar, and black absorbs heat more. Bigger picture, longer term, like it's not a big deal. Anytime I waste anything or any money or whatever, like I just feel like bad about it. I'm like, man, I could have saved that. I could have invested that. I could have spent it on something else. I'm gonna go out there now. I don't want to go, it's cold. Still have to get that door fixed. It doesn't open and close smoothly. Okay, so we're in here. Oh yeah, we also have to fix this light up here. We got one of these garage doors fixed. We have to reset the code, I think. There's a lot of junk still in here. We've done a really good job of cleaning most of it out. Like the layout of it is definitely not how I want it to be. But with that being said, here is what we have so far. I've kept the embroidery machine over here. We got a couple tables. This is all just for embroidery. Here's like a hat order that I've been working on. It's my friend's company that I've told you about in previous vlogs. He started a clothing line. It's like a hip hop junkie clothing line. It's It's called Junkie Life HD. I was having some issues with my embroidery machine recently. This order actually is my first, what they call 3D foam or puff embroidery. I'm sure you've seen it, it's really common. It's like this kind of thing where it kind of like sticks out, raised. This one's flat, so I don't know if you can see the difference, but let's see, I'll zoom in. It's hard to tell on camera. See how that kind of sticks out? This one does not. That's called like foam embroidery, 3D foam or puff. It took me forever to finish this order because it was my first puff order, and it's not that puff is difficult or foam or whatever you want to call it. My embroidery machine had to be recalibrated and it wasn't handling the foam well. It would start stitching and it would break and it would break and it would break over and over again. The thread would break and it was just making it take like excruciatingly painfully long. Yeah, I had to call a tech out. He came out here and serviced the machine. Luckily it was like free except for like a $50 travel fee, but I kind of like was there with him to go over it, and so that was cool because I learned a few things as far as like basically you want to oil your where your bobbin goes here every 4 hours if you're running the machine constantly, and then these are holes that you oil. You want to oil those like once, I think he said once a week for that. One back here, there's a little oil spot here, and then there's one right back here. Zoom in on that. Where that little red dot is. I think he said to do those once a week as well. There's also a oil reservoir on this side and an oil reservoir on this side that you do. I believe he said once a month for each of those. These are tension knobs, so they add or relieve tension from the thread as the thread comes through. For those who don't know that much about embroidery but are curious, these are called cones, right? Or spools. I always get them mixed up. One is a small one and one's a big one. I think these are the cones. These come up to here and then they go through here depending on which number they are. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 15. These are each tension knobs, so each thread has a tension knob up top, and then they also have a tension knob on the bottom. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, and so on and so forth. From the thread through the hole, and then you weave it through here. I'll make a better video one day to really like kind of explain how to thread a Tajima embroidery machine, TMBPS 1501C. That's the single head embroidery machine. There's a couple different models. There's 15 is the number of colors, 01 is the number of heads. If it was a 4-head embroidery machine, it would be a 1504. If it wasn't 15 colors and it was like a 7-color embroidery machine, I believe it would be like a 701 or 704 depending on how many heads there are, which is something also that I learned recently. And then like TMBP, there's like TMFX, there's TMHX. Those all have a little bit of different functionalities. They're like older or newer models. That's something I'm also still learning about. The tech who came over explained a lot of it to me, and he recommended different models over different models for me. I think when I upgrade, I'm gonna get a used machine. I would love to get a 6-head machine. I might end up settling for a 2 or a 4-head. The more the better, but it also just will depend on what I can afford. I was searching around on eBay, so if anybody's interested out there, you can actually find really well-priced machines on eBay. I just don't know how reliable they are. I've looked into a lot of them. I actually reached out to some. You should definitely haggle as well. There was a guy, unfortunately, he was out of California, and after talking to the tech, he was like, yeah, I wouldn't buy that because it's a really old machine. You'd want something newer, a little bit newer model. The one that I'm thinking about in particular, I think they were listed at, it was a 6-head machine for like, I think he had it listed for 18 or 19,000, but they had a best offer option on the listing. A new 6-head machine is probably $60,000, like 10,000 per head basically. A single head machine is like 15 to 16,000 if you're not including the program, which is like 2,000. If you buy a single head machine, it might be 15 or 16,000 for a Tajima. If you bought like a SWF or some of the other embroidery brands, they're cheaper. Tajima is actually like the most expensive brand out there. It's also like the best brand out there. You can get a $60,000 Tajima 6-head, brand new, Or you can go on eBay and maybe find like an old, like the one that I found was like from 1998, I think. So it was like 20 years old. Yeah, it was a 6-head machine. They ran it like every day. It was just being replaced. I made him a best offer of, I think, 10 or 12,000. He said the best I can do is 13. I was like, whoa, he came way down. Then I was talking to that sales rep who sold me that machine, and he wants my money. He wants my business. He doesn't want me going on eBay and buying just some random eBay seller's machine when I could buy through him, and then he makes money for him to put food on the table for his family. I get it. Although I do think he has my best interest at stake, but also wants to profit. So again, you take that into account. But he's like, don't be an idiot and buy a $13,000 paperweight. That machine's 20 years old. There's truth to that though. When I told the tech about that, he's not a salesperson, so he's a little more neutral. He just thought that was hilarious that the guy told me, don't be an idiot and buy a $13,000 paperweight. Anyway, I didn't buy it, but like, it was just interesting to haggle. I tend to do that from time to time. Like, I'll go on eBay, I'll look for really good used equipment. I'll message the sellers, ask them about how the machine's holding up, and just specific questions about, you know, the maintenance of it, how often it's used. And then I'll even make offers sometimes just to see what they're willing to come down to, because that'll help me in the future when I'm ready to buy one actually. There's also a chance that I might buy it at that time if I end up finding a really good one. Like for instance, I found, I think a 4 or 6 head in Ohio. The one that he came down to 13,000 for was out of California, so there's no way in hell I was gonna buy that, because just shipping that here would be thousands of dollars. In my previous post, I mentioned I had bought like a 20-foot conveyor dryer off eBay. The company, when I called them, they said that that machine, like a new model of that machine, that large, would cost, one guy told me 50,000, another guy told me 80,000. I've seen used ones for like 15 to 25. This one was listed for $600. So like, holy shit, like that's an amazing deal. If it seems too good to be true, it probably is. I bought it. I sent him the money over PayPal. I made him a best offer. I think I just said 500 and he accepted it. So I got it for $500. I had bought it for 500, but then that led to like, okay, well, I bought it, so now I have to figure out how to get it here. And so I started calling different rental truck companies. So I called U-Haul and I got a quote. It was out in New Jersey, so I had to figure out how am I gonna get that. So then I had to call Enterprise about renting a car, driving a rental car out there versus driving my own car. And that was not cheap. That was a couple $100s. And it's actually, I think, cheaper to drive out there and back than it was to like drive out there and leave the car at an Enterprise out there, because they charge you extra to do that, which I think is kind of a ripoff, but that's how their business is set up. So I had booked a reservation through Enterprise to do that, as opposed to driving my own car out there. And then I booked through U-Haul, but then I realized, oh, there's Penske, which I hadn't thought of calling. Enterprise, actually, I hadn't called them about this, but they also rent big moving trucks. They were gonna charge me $2,000 or something, $1,500 to $2,000. Then I called Penske. They had a bigger rental truck for a couple $100 less. I think it was like 17 foot or something like that, and the seller told me that I needed at least a 15-foot one. The U-Haul one had what they call mom's attic, which is a part of the truck bed in the back that overhangs the driver's cab. So you can't even really factor that in. They might say it's a 15-foot truck, but if 3 feet of that is a mom's attic and it hangs over the cab, like, yeah, you can use that for small stuff, but for what I'm transporting, I wouldn't have been able to use that. It was technically not even 15 feet if it said it was 15 feet. Whereas Penske had there was no mom's attic. It was just, you know, like where the driver's cab ends, the rest of the truck is usable. Found one through Penske that I think was 16, 17 feet, like $1,400. I would have picked it up in Jersey and driven it back. Plus I would have had to pay a couple $100s for a hotel for a couple nights. I was gonna break down the thing with the eBay seller so he could show me how it breaks down, show me how to put it back up. He had pictures of it being turned on with the temperature saying 300 something degrees, and the on light was working, and there was a good chance that the machine worked. I called an electrician friend of mine. I called the company who bought the company who used to make that and asked them about that specific model, and they were gonna sell me the schematics of it for like $80. But they did say like, oh yeah, that's an insanely good deal if you get it, even if you buy it and it's not working properly. Fixing it up will actually be a better deal. Like, you're gonna maybe put a couple $1,000s into fixing it, replacing cooling fans, fixing a heating element or gears or wiring. Might cost you a couple $1,000s to hire an electrician to do that, but in the long run, you're saving money because buying a newer used model or a different brand is going to be like 15,000, 20, 30,000. So you know, I'm buying the machine for 500, spending 2,000 to get it here, let's say, and then having an electrician or somebody fix it up might cost another couple thousand, but then maybe like 5,000 into this machine, I'm still saving like 10 grand. And it's a 20-foot commercial grade gas conveyor dryer for screen printing like that. I was so excited about it. I canceled, I kind of backed out last second because I just didn't feel good about it. And I don't think if you start to not feel good about something like that, then you should maybe not do it. Like, which I guess could have been said for this house. Like sometimes it's okay to, like, you do want to take risks and you're not going to feel 100% good about everything. But I just had a lot of second guesses about it. There were people talking about like, oh, when you buy machines that old, this machine's 30 to 40 years old. Like that's a very long time. A lot of parts could be mishmashed. They said that they remade parts for that machine, but there were like a small amount of parts that they made that they did not make or could not find, but that, you know, 90% or more of the parts for that dryer were purchasable through the company that bought the old manufacturer. It was promising, but also I was very skeptical because with it being that old, who knows what kind of maintenance had been done to it over 30 or 40 years. Could have been a lot of weird wiring work that people did and rewired in a way that maybe even if you had the schematic, it's different because it was wired by an electrician differently than it was supposed to be. And then now that I buy it and the new electrician has to figure that out, and it could have been a nightmare. I could have like spent $2,000 to get it here plus $500 to buy it. Ends up really never working for me like I hoped it would. It had a 10-foot heat chamber, which is literally ideal. Like this was the ideal dryer as far as size goes, and it was also a gas dryer. Gas dryers are cheaper than electric dryers, so that was also a big plus. I would have had to spend probably a couple $1,000s just to get the gas line installed so that I could hook the dryer up. It wouldn't have been too bad because I actually have like these big things here. These are actually gas heaters that the previous owner of this property had installed. I could have tapped into that gas line, and I'm not really even hardly going to use these. Having a gas dryer is fine, and I wasn't counting the cost of installing a gas dryer into this dryer because regardless if I buy this one for 500 or buy another one from M&R for 15,000, it's still going to need to be hooked up. I just started talking to a lot of people. There were some people that made it sound like, wow, what an incredible deal. Even if it's problematic to an extent, it's still gonna be worthwhile. I talked to my electrician friend who works for a company that I've been screen printing for since I started. They were one of my first customers, and he's the son of the owner of this company. He was like, yeah, man, if it were me, like I wouldn't do it because you don't know what you're getting yourself into, and the guy can't show you it running. You know, even if you drive all the way out to Jersey, he's not gonna show you it working because they already had decommissioned it, as the seller told me. So that led me to just asking to cancel the order, and it was kind of hard to get him to refund me the money. I told him like, well, you told me it was 10 amps or less, and then I called the manufacturer. They said it's at least 80, if not like 100, and I don't have that kind of capability. I will be upgrading this shop one way or the other. I have to. So that was another thing I started looking into. I called, you know, my electrician buddy, and I said, what are my options? This dryer was actually a 3-phase dryer, and I don't have 3-phase electric in this shop. I have single phase. So then I started looking into getting a phase converter. Most likely it would be cheaper to get a phase converter than to get 3-phase installed. If you have single phase electric, you can get a phase converter, and it will basically convert part of or all of your single phase electric into 3-phase. A lot of people had advised me in the past, like I went to some screen printing seminars, they said if you're gonna buy a shop, you should do whatever you can. Like it's very important to find a shop with a loading dock for once you get big and you have like semis or big trucks pulling up to get pallets. So a loading dock is important. But I'm not really at that level, and I probably won't be for a long time if I ever get to that level. I hope I do. With your guys' help, I can. So please like and subscribe and order. livecollection@gmail.com. If you'd like to place an order, just send me an email, and I will get back to you as soon as I can with any questions about your order details. We can hash it out. We can get started on your order. He was like, yeah, you want to have a loading dock. You want to have 3-phase electric, because if you have to install 3-phase electric yourself, you're going to spend like 50 grand. And it's not gonna cost me that much to get 3-phase installed, I don't think. I called an electrical engineer at Duke Electric, which is our local electrical company, and it's really the only one around here, which I was like, damn, that's like a monopoly, right? But they apparently have like codes and laws that they have to follow so that they can't just take advantage of people like me. Learned that I had to talk to the electrical engineer. He told me I needed to figure out all these different specs as far as zoning and if I'm allowed to do this, if I can tap into my current electric pole, or if we need to add one. It seems to be certain that I would have to add a telephone pole, which just in and of itself sounds like a expensive thing to do. It could be a couple thousand, but it most likely would have been probably 5,000 to 10,000 just to get the pole put in with like a 3-phase transformer. And then on top of that, I'd have to hire an electrical company just to run 3-phase to the garage. So I would have to hire an electric company or an electrician to run the 3-phase to the garage. So we'd have to like trench it underground, or we could run it over top. That would either mean digging up part of my driveway, which is like blacktop or cement, or going through the other side of the driveway, which would have been more feasible. But either way, it's just like a huge undertaking and a lot of money. Or you can do the phase converter. A phase converter, I talked to an electrical engineer at this company called like North American Phase Converters or something. He was explaining to me what the cost might be, or what the best options for me might be, or if it was even possible to do what I'm trying to do with the phase converter. But that also would have cost a couple $1,000s. And then last but not least, one way or the other, I would have to up the service that I have. I think I have a 200 amp service in my house, which is like a residential electric. And then I think currently I have 60 amps in this garage, which is not a lot. We got another little line out here that my uncle said would probably add another 30 amps. This is a line that we haven't tapped into yet, and then this is like 60 amps. Total, I can maybe pull 90 amps out here without having to get any electricians to add a service. Ultimately, I want to have more than enough electric so that I can keep growing and not have to set myself back. I know at some point or another, it's inevitable, if I want the business to grow the way that I do, that I have to upgrade my electric service here. I was talking to my electrician friend. He told me that those are my options: install the 3-phase, get a phase converter, or just up my single-phase service, and then I can later on convert that into 3-phase if I was really determined to have 3-phase, which I was, because a lot of automatic screen printing equipment is 3-phase only. You can get some of the lower end commercial grade automatic equipment as a single-phase piece of equipment, but once you get to the really big level, like the real big leagues, like you need 3-phase. Some of the really big automatic presses are solely 3-phase. There's like a certain amount of them that are, you can, when you buy it, you can tell them you have single or 3-phase, and they'll configure it to one or the other for you before you purchase it. Likewise with like flash dryers and conveyor dryers. Even with embroidery, it's all single phase in the embroidery world until you get to 12 heads. And then once you get to 12 heads, it's like everything's 3-phase. There's a company around here that has 400 embroidery heads. Like, oh my God, that's massive. And they did like automatic screen printing and everything. So if you think what I'm doing is impressive, like if you ever see a company like that, whoa, that's an operation. I have aspirations of potentially growing a business to that level of production, but I don't even know. I don't want to like get too ahead of myself. It is a goal of mine, but I don't know how realistic actually getting to that point is. But I'm hopeful and still learning. Maybe it's something I think I want that I don't end up wanting because I don't really understand or fathom like the level of work that it takes to get there. I decide that maybe I want like a certain level of success that's headed towards that direction, but it's just not what I want to do with my life. I don't know. I think it is, but I also don't, because there's a lot of other things I'd rather probably spend my time doing. Like, I don't want to be totally consumed with having to operate a business like that to the point where I'm not able to focus on doing YouTube videos or making music or spending time with people in my life. Like, that's important as well. So I don't want to get too misled into like that, but it is a goal, like maybe it is possible. Maybe I can have a partner in business at one point, and then it's manageable because there's like a team of people. Doing YouTube could inevitably or eventually be not that time consuming if I'm able to hire somebody to shoot and hire somebody to edit, which I really do want to do. I like shooting and I like editing, and I think I'll always do that on some level. But in order to do this to like the level I want to do, I think it would be nice to do it sort of like how Gary Vaynerchuk is, or like Jake Paul or Logan Paul, or even like Shane Dawson. Like actually like a ton of YouTubers do this, where they have editors or an editor and a videographer to shoot and edit for them, so that they can basically be the personality on the channel, and just kind of, I wouldn't really have to like slow down to shoot. Like right now, like I'm just standing here talking, and I need to get some work done, but at some point, if I have a videographer and an editor, like I can kind of, I mean, I'll still take time to talk like this because I think that's important for the channel and for you guys, but like at some point I can hopefully have somebody shoot and edit so that I can just print and I can do my thing, and you guys can kind of just see me in my element, and I can address you guys, I can address the camera every so often, but also just do what I do, and maybe you guys get like a bird or a fly on the wall perspective of just like how this works, which I think would be really insightful and like kind of a unique insight into how these businesses function. With the electric, Tim was just saying most likely they can install a 400 amp service. 400 is kind of like the max that I could go with like this type of property as far as zoning goes, because once you go above 400 it's like real big time. It's not 100% we could do a 400 amp service, but I'm hoping, and I'm pretty confident that like I can have my 200 amp residential service, and then we can add a 400 amp service on the outside of the house, which is strictly for business. So then I can have like my business electric and my residential electric separate bills. So if they add a 400 amp single phase service to the outside of the house, we can just run a wire from that over the driveway to the warehouse. And then that way I'd have at least 400. I don't know if the 60 or 90 that's currently in here would be added to that, but I'd have at least 400 amps, which is more than enough. Even if I get like an automatic plus a couple flashes plus more embroidery machines and a commercial conveyor dryer, and like say I get into other stuff like direct to garment, or even like a second or third automatic. I don't know if this space is big enough for that now, you know, the more I think about it, but potentially I learned that I could actually expand this garage into the driveway, because I have such a long driveway that like I could actually take the front of this, like where the garage doors are, off and hire a company to basically just make this go another 20 or even 40 feet if I wanted. I could pretty much double the size. Like it's currently 1,600 square feet. I could probably make it like 32. That's something that would be way far off if I end up doing that. Like, so I can do that with the electric, and then that'll be sufficient for what I'm trying to do at this property. We can always upgrade it to 3-phase or get a phase converter in the future. Right now I'm just trying to focus on what I currently have, getting the house done, starting to pay off the mortgage, getting this shop organized as best as possible, getting the dark room and the basement and all that organized, finishing the wedding stuff, and then probably not redoing weddings ever. Maybe, I don't know. Keep going back and forth on that, but, and just doing like music and stuff. But I like talking, can you tell? I'm gonna do a podcast, and then I can just talk my little head off. I'm gonna look into like getting the single phase 400 amp service installed eventually. And I got like a rough quote. That could be at least $4,000, I think, if not more. All this stuff, in order to get to this point that I'm trying to get to, like it all takes money to get there. And once you build that foundation, like that's how I always look at it, is like you're building a foundation for the future. Instead of spending $4,000 on other things over the course of the year, like treating yourself to an expensive vacation in another state, or just things that you like to splurge on, like jewelry or clothes or whatever, like I have what I need pretty much in most areas of my life. I don't really need to spend money on much, so invest in yourself rather than things. If you spend it on other things, like they come and go, like you might spend $100 on clothes that you outgrow or they get old and you throw them away. If I spend this money on the electric here, then eventually that money never really goes away. Like that's a long-term investment. It's a good use of money because it's eventually going to lead to making me more money. It's like a permanent investment. Once that's installed, it will increase the property value of this house because it's an improvement. Just like what I'm doing to improve the house improves the value. So when I resell the house, all the money I'm putting into renovating is not necessarily just lost or like just dumped into making the house nicer with no return. Ultimately, like the idea of doing that is, yes, one, it's to make it more comfortable, look nicer, stuff like that. But once you resell the house, you make that money back, or at least that's what your goal is. Keep track of what you spent to improve it. And you can either, just add that on or even upcharge that if you think you got it at a lower price than what it's actually worth. This house is 100 years old or more, but it's gonna be like a new house once we're done with it, because we're replacing insulation and walls and appliances and everything. It's like we basically gut it and stripped it, and now we're building it out again. So it's gonna be worth a lot more when I sell it than it was when I bought it. It's a permanent investment because I get to live with it like every day, and it's not gonna really change. I might have to fix things here or there. Same with the electric. If I get 400 amp single phase installed, that'll be here forever. Once you spend that money on that, you don't have to spend it on it again at any point. So it's there. So when I'm ready to upgrade my equipment, I can just tap into that electric and everything's good to go. I don't know if you guys have seen the movie What About Bob? Baby steps, Bob. I always tell myself that. It's just one little thing at a time, and it cumulatively, it's a hard word to say, I don't know. Like, yeah, cumulatively, I don't know, tell me if I'm pronouncing that right. You did a little thing here and you did a little thing there, and just over time, all that stuff eventually, like that's what this is that you see here. Like I started in my basement, I had a really bad press, and like just a lot of stuff that was nowhere near where it is now. If I had started vlogging at the very beginning, you would have seen a tremendous improvement over that span of time of like 4 years. Just from where I started in the vlog, when I started the vlog, like you've already seen an improvement of me like outgrowing my basement and moving into this much bigger space. Years to come from now, as I continue to grow and vlog and document what I'm doing, like you'll notice, like even just from a couple months ago, like I had not even bought the house, and then now I own the house, and then like everything's cleared out, we're starting to organize it, the house, like all this progress you get to, that's kind of my excitement with the vlog, is like you get to see that progress happen and then hopefully relate that to you. You don't have to do like huge things all at once all the time. Sometimes you can, and it's always great when you can, but sometimes all it takes is just a little step here and a little step there, and then all of a sudden 3 years go by and you look back and you're like, wow, all those little steps have turned into one really big step, or a lot of big steps. It all adds up if you make the right steps in towards things that are long-term investments, like adding electric, or like just me buying this press. Like that press was a couple $1,000s. That's a lot of money for me, but I mean, that's paid for itself many times over. It's not going anywhere. I mean, these presses can last over 20 years. Same with the embroidery machine. This is the most expensive thing I think I've ever bought, aside from like this house. All this stuff just, it adds up, and then you can recoup your money from it. And it's like cumulative, there it is, cumulative investments over time, small steps, sometimes big, they all add up. Eventually, I'm gonna max this space out. And so without further ado, I keep saying without further ado, I wanted to explain to you what I wanna do with this space, so here we go.